Welcome to the Legion of Lean podcast, where we battle mediocrity and build the best versions of ourselves. Get ready to transform.
Welcome to the Legion of Lean podcast. I'm Don Strange with my co-host, Corey Eggleston. Today, Corey, we're going to talk about the importance of muscle mass. I think a good title for this would be Die Strong or Die Early. Because if you don't have muscle, Corey, you're going to die early. And I see a lot of people, it's amazing because we don't get a lot of protein and people are just getting, I think what's amazing, I'll say this. I think what's amazing is 77 years old. I'm 48. It's coming sooner than I really wanted to. I'm closer to 48 or 78 than I am, 18, which I don't even want to hear that. I wish that wouldn't have came out of my mouth, to be honest with you. But the benchmark is getting better because I can see somebody like Sly Stallone. He's got freaking abs, Corey. Yeah, that's awesome. That's what I want to be. But then you see it's like the haves and the have-nots, like the poor and the rich. The same with fit people and overweight or underweight people who don't have muscle mass. You know what I'm saying? You see I'm 48 years old. I think I look pretty good for 48 years old. There are guys that are 48 years old look like they're 117, Corey. I see him and say, you're my age. You look like freaking crap. But I think that one of the keys for aging is having muscle mass.
Definitely.
What do you got for me, Corey?
Yeah, so I think that's kind of like, because I think you're seeing it more and more about the benefits of the muscle mass as opposed to not. And so I think strength training is becoming something that is more and more prevalent. Before it was it was all about cardiovascular health. So like run, do this, do that, cardio, which is fine. You want to do those things, but I think you need to emphasize muscle strength training just as much, if not more, because you can also, if you're training hard, the cardiovascular health comes with that. So the cardio can come along with your strength training workouts. You get your heart rate up when you're working out. Now you can also walk on a treadmill if you want to go run, you can. But the thing is, you look at these marathon runners, they're in very, very good shape. They're very thin. They don't have a whole lot of muscle mass. And so you think of the amount of calories and things that they're burning to run a mile, 2 miles, 5 miles is astronomical. And so a lot of people that are running recreationally, this is my opinion, and they're running, 3 or 4 miles a day, they're doing it because they maybe want to lose weight. They want to stay in shape. They're not eating enough calories to maintain or build any sort of muscle mass because the amount of calories that they're burning while they're running those 4 or 5 miles a day to try to keep their heart strong, which is great. They also need to incorporate a large amount of protein in order to keep that muscle mass. And so as that muscle mass decreases, I think, from what age 35 on, your muscle mass is going to steadily start to decline. And that's when you start to see some people have some of those chronic issues, back pain, knee pain, joint pain, things like that. And that's, and then when you get to 70, or 65, it's even higher. And so that's when you start to see some of those more chronic diseases, seeping cancers and things like that. And I think one of the main benefits of muscle mass that people need to understand is the more muscle mass you have, the more calories your body's going to burn in a rested state. And so you
100%.
want to burn more calories, you want to be in better shape, work out, build some muscle, and that's going to help your body then burn those calories, and then you're going to be able to lose some more fat. But you need to supplement your muscles with what they need, which is protein. And if you're not building that muscle, then your body's just becoming weaker. And when something does happen, something big, whether it be, an injury, whether it be cancer or something like that, your body's going to have a lot tougher time fighting that off if your muscle mass is lower.
Yep. You said something there. Muscle mass burns about 10 calories a day per pound at rest, and fat only burns 1 to 3. And so the more muscle mass you have, the more calories you burn. Also, you said something about marathon runners. You can be in training for 20 plus years. Corey, I have people come to me all the time and say, hey, I want to run a marathon. Do you really want to run a marathon? Because I think you're stupid. I honestly have never seen a marathon run looked happy. When I ran a half marathon, it wasn't much of a run, to be honest with you, Corey. I'm not even going to talk about it. Wasn't much of a run when I ran the half marathon because I hate running. But everybody who passed me that was a good runner, they look like on their face, it was the same face that I'd have if I'm going to run off a cliff and commit suicide because they didn't look happy at all. I don't believe it. Runner's high. You got to be high to run, as far as I'm concerned. But what's fascinating about it is marathon runners, they don't have good body composition. They just, unless they're, even if they're elite, they're just skinny. So it's fascinating just on how you train. So I always tell people that they say, hey, I want to run a marathon. A lot of time is code for lose weight. Hey, there's better ways to do it. The difference between activity and accomplishment. Do you want to lose weight or do you want to get fit? Do you want to look like Corey? You want to look like a God of War guy, or do you want to look like, the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man from Ghostbusters? Which one do you want to look like? Because there's a way to do things, expedite results. And marathon running, I don't want to run a marathon. I don't know anybody that really. I think they're crazy, but I train some marathon runners. I shouldn't say that. If you're a marathon runner and you're not crazy, you're just silly. But the deal is, if you want to run, that's fine. I know one of my friends, he ran the Boston Marathon. Great guy, and that's awesome to be able to even qualify for. That's awesome, and I applaud him. That's awesome. It takes It takes a lot of self-discipline to do that, to stay consistent. But there are better ways to skin a cat if you want to get in good shape. If you just want abs, and you might not get abs if you run a marathon. Like I said, go to a marathon. If you've never run a marathon, you think, hey, I want to run a marathon to get in shape. Go and see if you want to be in the shape of those guys that finish, and you probably don't, because nobody looks like Corey whenever they finish a marathon. Well, I would say nobody. There's very few people that are going to be in the shape of Corey, because Corey specifically trains for a specific reason, to make his body look a certain way. So figure out what you want, and if you want to run a marathon, that's fine. If you don't, and that has nothing to do with muscle mass, or as far as what we're talking. I'm just talking. I enjoy, railing on people who run. To be honest with you, I do.
What I think the science behind also is that's coming out of, like, one of the best ways and most efficient ways to lose weight is walking, right? Because it's going to put the least amount of pressure on your joints, and you're also going to be able to retain more muscle mass.
Not running off
as you burn those calories. Yeah. So, I mean, I haven't run in a long time. I do a lot of walking, I'll walk for 45 minutes every morning, maybe 20 minutes at night. So, it's enjoyable too. You can go out and go for a walk with your family, walk your dog, you don't have to just, you're running, you're just pounding that pavement, boom, boom, boom. I think when you're walking, you can kind of enjoy yourself a little bit more, and it makes it not seem like you're actually exercising.
You can enjoy it. I like walking. And, it's so funny because you've matured a lot faster than me. I'm several years older than you. But when I was in my 20s and 30s, before I got chubby, if you look at my before and after pictures, I said walk-ins for losers. I didn't run everywhere because I hated running, but I worked out with weights all the time. My dad said all the time, I ran 5 miles one time, Corey. My dad's old school. He's like me, kind of. Yeah. And he said, I called him. I said, Dad, I ran 5 miles. He said, what'd you run it in? I said, 50 minutes. He said, boy, you ain't running, you walking. I said, my God, no wonder where I got this attitude, Yeah. But get this, though. This is fascinating. You said, I pulled up some studies because I knew we were going to talk about this. Weak muscles, get this, Corey, 50% higher risk of death. University of Michigan study found individuals with low muscle strength are 50% more likely to die earlier than their stronger peers.
Yeah.
So that's actually like a worse than smoking. You got no muscle, you die. There's actually a test, and it's a squat test. If you squat down and you can't get back up, have you seen that test?
Yeah.
And I think so. If you squat and you can't get back up without bracing yourself on something, it tells you how long you got to live. I wish I looked at that study. It's it's like 5. I'm not going to say it, but there's something called a squat test. I wish I looked it up before we got on here. Didn't even think about it until we got on here. But there are tests that you can do to determine how long you're going to live based upon the muscle mass you have. But one way to do, if you can't carry a gallon of milk, you need to build some muscle mass.
Yeah. But I saw, and it's something I saw. You should be able to carry your body weight. I think for men, you should be able to carry your body weight for like a full minute. Yeah. So if you're 200 pounds, you should be able to carry 100 pounds in each hand for 1 minute. Which, I think most people probably could not do.
No, most people probably couldn't.
Or even if you weigh 150 pounds, 75 pounds in each hand for walking for 1 minute. That would be pretty difficult for even someone that's in pretty good shape. So I think it's some of those things where it's like, a lot of these markers and things are good goals and stuff, but it's not even about, and I think it's like you said, that's 50% higher risk of dying early if you have lower muscle mass. And that could due to a multitude of things, because that could be due to, you could be injured faster, doing something
Yep.
like that. And then obviously like it's harder for your body to perhaps fight off things. And then the big thing is like, because that typically lower muscle mass can lead to a higher obesity, which then can lead
100%.
to cardiovascular disease or diabetes or things like that. So it's not just like, oh, it's going to fight off, cancer. No, it's that it's the higher muscle mass you have, the lower risk you have of being obese, which means the
Yep.
lower risk you have cardiovascular problems and like diabetes and things like that. So I think that's where people don't understand, is that it's not just about being strong and being able to lift things up. It's that your body is going to be in better physical shape and condition, and so your risk of developing those things, not saying it's zero, not saying it's even 10% or whatever it is, but the risk of developing those things are lower because your lifestyle. And we've talked about that
Yeah.
before, that a lot of people don't want to have those lifestyle changes, right? They want the quick fix and things like that. So building muscle mass is not easy, right?
Nope.
It's something that's very difficult. And so it's kind of, you have to decide, is this something that I want to do? And hopefully the answer for people is yes, because they can hopefully make the connection between the longevity and the increase in muscle mass.
Hmm. Oh, yeah, well, just like you said, it's not just because the guy, you could do all kinds of steroids and do all kinds of other crazy crap to hurt your body and have all kinds of muscle die earlier.
Yeah, yeah,
But the key is, though, it's just like you said. Typically, if your muscle mass is high, you're probably doing some things right. That's You're not eating freaking Krispy Kreme donuts every day, Krispy Kreme donuts
yeah,
a day. You're not obese if you got high muscle mass. You know, you've cut out all the risk factors because you're eating cleaner than the most people.
hmm,
But as far as the mortality rate, you cherry pick any study. You know what I'm saying? I got this study from University of Michigan Public Health. I was
yeah,
one study, but whenever you've got multiple studies, you just can't, like I said, you just can't cherry pick one study. But whenever you got multiple studies, I got 5 studies right here. Stronger muscles, 31% more mortality. So one was 50, one was
yeah,
meta-analysis revealed that adults with higher muscle mass measured hand grip tests, just like you said earlier, had 31% reduced risk of all-cause mortality compared to low strength levels. Here's
uh-huh,
one. Muscle strength cuts death risk by up to 46% in cancer patients.
yeah,
That's insane. And it's not because they might get cancer, but they have enough muscle mass and they have enough strength to get through it.
yeah.
And
Well, and
so,
I've got one here from the Cancer Center, and it says that cachexia is the muscle wasting disease that typically comes along with cancer. And it says that it affects up to 80% of cancer patients and is responsible for up to 30% of all cancer-related deaths. So it's saying that it's 30% of those cancer-related deaths are due to a muscle wasting factor of cancer. And so it's saying, even if you don't start, this is saying you can start strength training when you're diagnosed with cancer, and it'll increase your chance of survival exponentially. And so obviously then, if you're already in shape, you already have high muscle mass, then hopefully that would mean that your risk of, mortality is lower, right? It's so I think I mean, it's all out there. You can find as many studies as you want. Now,
oh,
obviously, it's
totally.
not everybody, but I think that the evidence is pointing towards
It's
increased muscle mass is going to lead to a more, a longer life. And I think of it as, I'll be 36 in July, and I've got my youngest will be 4 in just a few days, and then my oldest will be 7 in July. And I look at it as, when I'm 50, okay,
yeah,
and my kid is, 20 whatever, or I don't know, can't I'm not great at math, but I still want to be, I want to be able to run down the street. I want to be able to go out there and I want to be
absolutely.
slinging the ball around. And then when I'm 70 and I've got grandkids, I want to be doing the same exact thing. I want
Yep.
to be running around I want to be rolling around the floor. I want to be running around the backyard. I want to be riding
Mhm.
bikes. I want to be throwing the ball around. I don't want to
Yes.
be sitting in the chair rocking
Yep.
and just, watching from the sidelines. And I think that's the problem, is that the society now and the things that people are fueling their body with, and they're okay with doing this, they're okay with that, they're okay with taking whatever pharmaceuticals that
Yeah.
they don't know the side effects of, things like that. I think that when they turn 65 and 70 years old and they've got grandkids, like, and even 35 or 40 years old now with their kids, people are finding, oh wow, getting up and down off the ground is hard. My back hurts, my knees hurt. I can't do this. I got to take a break,
Yeah.
things like that. I think, and I've had people talk to me about that, and they were like, dude, I got to change something because I was playing with my kids and I was like, hey, sorry, I can't do it right now. I got to take a break, And so I think it's definitely eye-opening for people my age that are in their 30s and their kids go nonstop, right? If you got
Yeah.
toddlers or 6 or 7
Oh
year
yeah.
olds, like they go nonstop. And so I think when you experience that and you realize, oh man, I want to keep up with my kids, I want to do
Yep.
everything that they want, or else they're going to stop asking me to do things.
Yep.
And then they realize that they got to make some changes. And so you hope that it's not too late, right? It's not too
Yeah.
late for them to make those changes. And it's never too late. You can start when you're 30, 40, 50, 60, it doesn't
Yeah.
matter. But the big thing is consistency, right? Or
Hmm.
it's motivation's great. I think I sent you that video of Joe Rogan one time. He's talking about motivation and he says, I'll clean it up a little bit. He's like, screw your motivation. You need discipline.
Absolutely.
You're not going to be motivated. Trust me, I am not motivated every day right now. I wake up, I'm tired, hungry, right? So I'm not motivated, but I go and I get the work done because I know the benefit that's going to come in the long run. And so
Yep.
there's so many people out there that say, when you see someone that is in shape, you immediately have some sort of respect for them because
100%.
you understand that they know discipline, right? They know the delayed gratification, right? So it's
Hmm.
not instant. And so I think that's important too. It's about bettering yourself. And when you start to work out, whether you develop, massive muscles or whether you get in great shape or not, but when you start to work out, you are 100%, I guarantee it, going to feel better about yourself. No
Hmm.
matter what you're doing, once you start moving, once you start working out, you will feel better. There's no question about it.
Oh, not a question. Just so you guys know, Corey's 7 days away from NBC Men's Physique Show. That's what he's talking about. He's shredded, man. You freaking touch his abs, you're going to get cut because he's ripped. But you said something was interesting. You said, I remember one thing that happened to me, being a trainer, sometimes you can know everything to do and not do it. And I got chubby in my 30s, really chubby. And I remember getting on a treadmill with my niece and nephew. I'm not treadmill. Sorry. I wasn't on a treadmill with my niece and nephew. I was on a trampoline. It's a big
Yeah.
difference. On a
Okay. Yeah.
trampoline with my niece and nephew. I was gassed. It's like, my God, I got to drink
Yeah.
a smoke a Marlboro or maybe a pack, and I don't smoke. You know what I'm saying? Something's got to catch my breath. I had never understood that. I've
Yeah.
seen some people. I remember at the gym I used to work at in Redneck, Festus, Missouri. A guy would get off the treadmill, go outside, a guy would smoke a cigarette. I
I've
don't know
seen it,
how
man.
that's going to
I've
help
seen
you
it.
do. But
Yeah.
anyway, I thought maybe I'm going to try that because this ain't working, whatever I'm doing. But I didn't do any cardio. I was chubby. And I said, I can't do this, man. I got to get in shape. Also, I was tired all the time. You said something about tired. You're exhausted. You're not only exhausted while you're working out or on the trampoline, but it just exhausts all the time. Whenever
Yeah.
you're carrying a lot of weight, your body doesn't really have the energy. We have the unlimited the ability to put on unlimited amount of fat, Corey. You know that you
Oh,
can put
yeah.
on. You can see a 600-pound line. They can put on unlimited amount of energy. But that's
Hmm.
what's crazy about energy, Corey. They can't use the energy. They
Yeah.
can't use it because their mitochondria sucks. They're not creating ATP. They literally, so whenever you hear the term fat and lazy, that's obviously very offensive. But because there's a lot of people live sedentary lives all day long because they're on the computer. We're in a different world than where we
Yeah.
were even in the 80s, the 70s, and 80s because we don't have it in
For sure.
manufacturing like we used to. People aren't on their feet. So you could have to be very alert and not lazy mentally, but you can be very lazy physically, sitting on the couch. Most of our lives are sedentary. And so
Yeah.
fat and lazy go hand in hand, but they don't have to. But what's amazing about it is people who eat bad food, Corey, their body doesn't create, the mitochondria don't create ATP. Did you know
Uh-huh.
that?
Yeah.
And so they really don't have just ATP, adenosine triphosphate is a currency for energy your body. And so let me give you this analogy. It'd be like if you owned an oil rig, Corey, and in West Texas, and we could pump that beautiful crude oil out. And if I put that in my gasoline tank in my Cadillac, it would not run. Why? Because it's not converted to ATP. Your body will take energy, it'll take carbs and fat, and it converts it to ATP, which is currency for energy in your body. People who live on the standard American diet or the crap that we eat, their body doesn't convert that beautiful crude oil, for my lack of back analogy, to ATP for currency for your body. And so they literally don't have energy to move.
Yeah.
And you know what's amazing? It can segue into what you're going to probably talk about in a minute. Maybe. I don't know if you're thinking the way I'm thinking. Go ahead, Corey. What do you got to say about that? Anything? You got anything to add to that?
No, so I was going to say, so some ways to make sure that you are maintaining your muscle mass, right? Or you're building your muscle mass is you need your protein, right? We kind of talked about protein. And I tell people all the time, it's like people drastically underestimate the amount of protein they're eating in a day. And so if people track their protein, you're probably 100% less than 100 grams of protein, probably closer to 50 a day, which for a man that weighs 175 pounds, I would always say you should be getting 175 grams of protein a day.
1 gram of protein per pound of preferred body weight minimum. And the more if you're trying to lose weight, you need even more.
Exactly. And I think one of the other supplements that is being really talked about now because of the research behind it is creatine. So when I was a kid, I say a kid, a teenager, creatine was it was basically steroids, right? If you're doing creatine, people are like, oh my gosh, they're on creatine, right? It was like parents were like, no, you can't take creatine, you can't do this, you can't do that. And now creatine is touted as one of the safest supplements out there. It's one of the most highly researched supplements, and it's not even the benefits go beyond muscle building. It's cognitive ability. They're saying for Alzheimer's, creatine can be a game changer to prevent Alzheimer's and dementia and things and people. And so I just pulled up one about, it's not, people are like, well, you probably heard this all the time, right? As the trainer when women start working, well, I don't want to get bulky, right? Well, you're not going to get bulky because you can't get bulky. Genetically, you cannot get bulky.
No, it's so funny.
So
it's the biggest myth, and I still fight it every day. I don't want to get too muscular.
Creatine is something that everybody can take, men and women. And so just for example, I pulled another article and it says that women, they experience different symptoms of aging from men. Beginning at age 30, women lose on average between 3 and 8% of their muscle mass every decade, which becomes accelerated after age 50. So something that they can do to slow that or prevent it is obviously heavy strength train, right? Not just go in with the 2.5 pound, the 5 pound dumbbells, but lift some heavy weight. You're not going to get bulky. The only thing it's going to do, it's going to help you build some muscle mass, but your muscles can only get so big, right? You can't go in there. You're not going to look like, some of they think of the bodybuilding girls who are on a lot more different option, a lot different things than just creatine. But creatine, I also saw a quote, it was creatine is for our muscles as fuel is for a car.
That's right.
Okay, so creatine is going to make your muscles work. It's going to make them grow, just like fuel's going to make a car go.
It creates ATP, like the currency for your body. That's what it does. So your body has a limit, just a small amount of ATP in the muscles. But whenever you're working out, your body gets rid of that, and creatine actually will put that back in the muscles.
And we naturally produce some creatine, but only about half of what our body needs. And so we need to supplement with that. And so the best way to do it is with the creatine supplement, which I can tell you right now, creatine supplements, who knows what, right? Everybody's saying prices are going up across the board. I have yet to see it, but that's what I'm hearing, right? But creatine is not a very expensive thing. You can buy a good quality creatine for 20 or 30 bucks. It's not, and it'll last you 2 months. And something I tell my wife, she doesn't strength train all that much, but she adds it to her coffee every morning because I've explained the benefits of it other than just muscle building.
So good.
For everybody.
Yeah. Creatine is really a game changer. I looked at some studies on creatine myself here. Get this. 2003 study showed creatine plus resistance training increased bench press performance 16 to 43%, and 1 rep max up from 33.4% in 4 to 12 weeks. That's pretty good. That's pretty good stuff right there. And that's all because creatine is going to give you that endurance. You're going to be able to work out harder because you're putting that. Creatine, there's two different kinds of energy source your body uses. If you're running a marathon, you're using aerobic system, you're using oxygen. But whenever you're working out with the weights like Corey is, you want to build some muscle mass, You're using ATP. And what's funny is, I'm just going to reiterate some of that point. It's so funny because I don't even know how many times I got to beat a dead horse as far as tell women they're never going to get big and bulky. I don't want to be big and bulky. You're not. It's impossible to do.
Possible. Yeah.
I've trained for 20 plus years. I don't even know. I don't even want to say how long I've trained because it makes you feel old. So we'll just say 20 plus years. But I remember several years ago, I trained a lady. I'm not going to say her name. It just popped in my head just to protect the innocent. She might not be innocent. I don't think she's innocent at all, but I'll protect her name. But I remember one time she came to my office, and this woman could put on a lot of muscle mass, and literally, like, there's a unicorn every now and then that comes, and I say, well, I've trained thousands of people, Corey, so occasionally you're going to have somebody that defeats or is not the stereotypical person. Well, this woman, I think she could grow more facial hair than me. She looked kind of more like you because this woman could squint and grow a beard. But it was funny. I would just give her all kinds of backhand compliments all the time. I didn't want to train her. I didn't really like her. And mainly because I realized how it was to be a woman whenever she talked to me, because that woman sexually harassed me from the time she came in my office, the time she left. And it was not only not reciprocal, but it was like, some of the lines she used, I said, I got to write this line down. This is good. I'm going to use this on my girlfriend or my wife. Wasn't married at the time, but I definitely wasn't interested in her. She came to my office one time while she was sprouting a beard, Corey. She said, I like those pants. I said, thank you. And she said, they look better under my bed. I said, my God, this one. And I'd train her even harder. Every time she'd say something, Corey, I would freaking annihilate this woman. I made her puke every time. She turned shades of green. I didn't think a person could turn just because she'd light me up with some kind of innuendo. I say, man, I can't hack this. And so I just train her even harder. But I just said all I'd say that. I don't want you to lose in this story. She could put on a lot of muscle mass, but that was one woman. Mm-hmm. And come to think of it, it was probably a trainee. You know what I'm saying? Nobody built muscle mass like that. Plus, I've never met a woman that gave me that many good one-liners, to be honest with you. Man, I'm going to use that one. That one's totally inappropriate. And and other people, I trained a few women that could put on a little bit of muscle, but they like it too. And so that's what's funny too. Anybody, if you have the ability, the God-given ability to put on a lot of muscle mass, you're probably going to like the way you look whenever you get there.
Exactly.
Just because that's the way God programmed you.
That's right.
Here's another one. Let me see this here. Just where's it at here? The creatine thing. You boost brain power. A study found that 5 grams of creatine improved memory and intelligence test scores and people who were 21 hours sleep deprived. Here's another one. Brain fog, especially if you're vegan. We don't train vegans. No, just kidding. I don't have anything against the vegans, except I don't like them. No, I'm just kidding. Creatine improved cognitive performance and reduced mental fatigue for vegetarians doing repetitive tasks, not tasks. Working memory and attention improved significantly. That's awesome. And if you're a vegan, if you're a vegetarian, you need to do creatine because you're definitely not getting any, because the main source of creatine that I know about is red meat. And I'm sure if you're a vegan, the last thing you want to do is eat an old cow burger. Age slower. Here we go. This is funny because this is the one on creatine again. We were talking about grip strength. Older adults supplemented with creatine saw improved grip strength, balance, and lean muscle mass. They maintained functional movement and prevented muscle loss tied to aging. And so it's actually linked to slower aging. Yeah. That is awesome. I tell you what, man, people need to get on creatine for sure. If you want to live a long time,
it's a simple addition that you can make. Yeah.
It's very cheap too. What do you think about this, Corey? I don't know this might not be a thing anymore. Because I tell people just take creatine monohydrate. I like the German creatine. I don't really care. I like monohydrate. Yeah. I'm not so sure what your feeling is on that. That's the one that I like the most.
That's what I use.
But I remember when because the creatine really came in when I was a kid. That was a long time ago. And people always say, hey, you got to drink it with grape juice. You got to drink it with the juice. Have you ever heard that before? It's not. Okay. So I'm glad that's not still a myth, but that was really big back in the day. You got to do it because we got to spike insulin levels. That's the only way creatine's going to work. So I drink some grape juice. The good news is, so I'm glad that's not a myth anymore. You don't have to do that. So I'm glad that I hit a myth that nobody believes anymore anyway. So If you're over the age of 70, you might still be trying to do
That's
grape
right.
juice, but you don't have to. We don't want to spike. That's the reason why one thing I don't really like Ignition from Supplement Superstore a whole lot, because they sell it to everybody. And I like I like Supplement Super. They're great products. I love First Form, but I can't
Yeah.
stand the product Ignition for most people. Most people don't need freaking dextrose freaking candy. They don't need it. So
Yeah.
they give it to all my clients. They'll say, "Hey, well, you need this. You need to get the insulin up." No, they don't. They freaking don't. They're freaking 25 pounds overweight on a good day. They don't need freaking candy, because that's what it is. Ignition, by the way,
Yeah.
I like self-serve. I don't send me nasty letters, but you don't. If you need insulin to build muscle mass, no one doing carnivore would ever build muscle mass, and people do carnivore all the time,
Yeah.
and they get muscle mass. But anyway, I don't like that product that much. For you, I give it to you.
Yeah.
But for most of it, it's for a demographic about that big, not this big. If you give it to
Gotcha.
somebody who's obese, don't give them
Yeah.
Ignition. Don't give them candy to spike insulin levels. They just got blurry. Look at that.
Yeah, you did.
That's awesome, man. Well, maybe I'll come
There it
back.
is.
Anyway, Corey, what else we got? What else we
I
got?
mean, that's kind of all I got, man. I think that we kind of hit it. We kind of hit on what we wanted to, right? The muscle mass longevity. I think in one of the most effective ways and easiest ways to do that is by making sure that you're getting enough protein and that you're getting. I think creatine is an easy supplement that everyone should be taking, whether they're weight training or not.
I totally agree with that. Got to do creatine. You got it. Protein, number one. Creatine is the best supplement on the market. You said at the beginning, it is the most widely researched supplement. It is extremely safe. Make sure you drink water whenever you do it, though. Don't be being stupid and dry scooping creatine. If you do, you will have kidney problems. I'm not lying. I know one guy in my whole life that had some kidney problems because of creatine, but he flushed his kidneys out. He's fine. They actually thought he had some kind of disease because he would dry scoop creatine, wouldn't drink any water with it, dehydrated. What
Yeah.
guy?
Yeah.
They
We
literally
had a high
thought
school football player that did that. He was taking like 25 grams of creatine a day and wasn't drinking barely any water. And it had the opposite effect, right?
Yeah.
He collapsed at practice one day and we didn't realize what it was. And he said, "I'm taking creatine, but I'm not drinking any water." I was like, "Well, that's the problem."
Yeah, absolutely. You don't be stupid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Anyway,
and I think next time, Don, we can talk about maybe even some more supplements and vitamins and things like that and what people should have.
I like that. We'll do that.
Yeah.
I like the podcast. I think it was good. I think people are going to learn. If you guys need a trainer, go with me and Corey. I own a company called Strange Sculpting. What do you think of that shirt? I'm strange. You ever see Stranger Things? You ever watch that show, Stranger Things?
Oh, yeah.
I stole that logo
I see that.
It's pretty cool. I shouldn't say I stole it, though.
You're going to get a cease and desist from them anytime now.
But I am strange. You get this shirt at strangesculpting.com.
If you guys train with Don, that shirt rings true.
Yeah, absolutely. I will. If you guys, Corey, I owe you a muscle. I don't mind owing people, by the way. I owe you a shirt. I got it on my list here that I'll give you within the year by 2028, 2029, whenever. It's on my list. It's putting the mask back in the masculinity. But I'm going to give you this shirt too. Maybe I'll give it to you Sunday if I see you.
Okay. I'll be there Sunday.
So if you guys stay tuned for our next one. Before you stay tuned, make sure you like, share, and subscribe. In the show notes below, I'll put the link to get this shirt. You'll probably want to buy it because it's the greatest shirt of all time, made with real cotton and other things. You can click the link to follow me and Corey. Make sure you do that. Can't wait till you come back. I can't wait for the next podcast. I think it's going to be the greatest thing ever. Probably. This would probably go out to millions of people, change people's lives around the world.
That's right.
Okay, thanks, Corey.
Thank you, Don.
I'll talk to you guys later.
Yeah.
I hope you enjoyed the Legion of Lean podcast. Stay lean, hit subscribe, and join us next time.